All right, on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, very special guest, head coach of the Maine Black Bears, Ben Barr. Why is Ben Barr joining an Avalanche podcast? Well, you're going to have to listen to our intro music to find out. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom. And joining us today, Mr. Ben Barr, the head coach of the Maine Black Bears. Ben, thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm happy to be here.
I know there's a lot of people probably wondering why we have the head coach of the Maine Black Bears on when there's a team in the state of Colorado who won the national championship in college that's in the same state that the Avalanche play. There's two reasons why Ben is on today. One is we are like extended family, I think. So it's like you're contractually obligated to do this. I don't know if you knew that or not. It's like the fine print in your contract. But the other part and the bigger part is you have an in with the Makar family. You know them very well. You are responsible in some form for bringing Cale to UMass. And obviously people keep on track of what's going on with the Makars and the Avalanche. They know Taylor Makar went into the transfer protocol and will be playing for you at Maine next year. So how'd you do it?
Well, I mean, I've been asked this question, just having been with Cale for 2 years at UMass, and we really didn't. So our staff, this was now going back 8 years, when we got to UMass, Cale was actually already committed there. And, he was a young kid and, we knew he was good. But the first year we were there, he was already committed and he was playing for Brooks in the Alberta Junior League. And obviously, he became, one of the top, prospects for his draft year that year. And, ended up going, I think it was 4th overall or whatever. So,
yeah.
We were a little bit worried that because our team at UMass was not good at the time. And, that first year, which we knew, like anytime you go and take over a program that, has had some struggles, it was going to be a long year. And, in this day and age, like for a kid of that stature to stay committed to a team that, finished last in Hockey East that the year before he came, and he became, a top 5 pick. And, that really kind of tells you, the type of, how he's built and his family and the kind of people they are. So that whole first year we're sitting there losing. I think we lost every game after Christmas. And, so we're just going, man, this is, I think 99 kids out of 100 would have, in his shoes would have chosen to go somewhere else. And, he didn't, and he wanted to kind of blaze his own path. And he's always been that type of kid. And, the Makars are that type of family. They're just extremely, I don't know if the word is, loyal or maybe consistent. And, everything he said he was going to do from the day that, Coach Carvel, myself, and Jared DeMichael's now at Michigan State got there, he did. And and I think it kind of speaks to how, his development and, how he's able to kind of, block out a lot of the noise and he's just that, I think, as talented as he is, he's also as mentally talented as anybody to be able to, show up every day. He's always true to what he says he's going to do. He's an unbelievable person. And so we were just super fortunate to be able to work with him for 2 years, at UMass. And he really, we had obviously some other really good players too, but, when it's okay for a kid like Cale Makar to go to UMass, then it becomes okay for anybody to go to UMass. And, so, he came there his second year when he won the Hobie, and, and then he went right into the NHL playoffs after that. This was 2019, I believe. We lost the national championship game, and, then 2 years later we won. and we won the whole thing. And it was kind of, he kind of set the stage for that. And with the players we were able to, to recruit after he was there. And, obviously they've continued to do the same thing, Coach Carville there at UMass. And, but yeah, so, when Taylor decided, to take his last year at another school, I think, again, it really comes down to the relationships for them and their family. And, I was there when we recruited Taylor, and I wasn't there when he got there. I left to become the head coach up here at Maine his freshman year. So, he decided to go somewhere else. Obviously we were, a team that I think he can come in and help us tremendously. So, and they're not a family that's looking for the next best thing. They're more, just trying to trust that, whatever is said about, Taylor's opportunity, whether it's here or somewhere else. And that's what they're looking for. And, it's an easy decision for us, and, hopefully an easy decision for him. And we're excited to have him here next year.
Yeah. I want to get to Taylor in a little bit. But starting with Cale, he was already committed to UMass when you got there, you said. What do you know? Maybe you don't know the answer to this because he was already committed, but like, what drew him to UMass? I mean, because like you said, they were a struggling team. He's a top prospect, so to speak. What made him want to go there?
Well, I think when he committed, it's not like, UMass was a bad place to go.
Right.
Obviously, playing in Hockey East, and, there's a lot of great things about UMass. The program, was struggling maybe a little bit when he committed, but it wasn't,
bottom of the barrel type.
Yeah. And he was a young kid, and he wasn't very big. And he was just a kid looking to play college hockey when he committed, I think, and I can't speak to that, but, Coach Micheletto and Coach Gasparini were there before us at UMass and did a great job recruiting him. But he, and this happens with a lot of young kids, as their stature grows before they get to school. And especially now, the rules have changed tremendously the last few years. It just becomes harder. More people are in your ear. There's more people that think they, might know, might have a better option, or might know what's better for this person or that person. And, he gave us, we spent a lot of time, obviously, trying to get to know him that first year before he came. And I think he trusted that we would be able to help him, help our team turn around. For one, we were able to recruit some other really good. He wasn't the only, good player that came in that year when he was a freshman. So, he saw that there was other players around him, which I think was really important. But, I think it, he's just wired a little bit differently. It never was really a conversation. It was more in our heads that, hey, like, we're, how are we going to get Cale to come here? And for him, it was just, this is what I decided to do. I'm, like he said when he came, I'm going to go there for 2 years. Obviously, after the first year, he very easily could have gone to Colorado and signed and turned pro. And he was, he's like, there's still room for me to get better here. And he did the same thing in junior hockey. He maxes out his potential at any given level. And it's allowed him to obviously, go into a situation prepared. And he was an instant, he walked into Colorado and was every bit as good for them as he was for us at UMass, which is, pretty incredible. But he's able to be honest with himself. And I think that was the really what makes him a special player and also a special person. But yeah, I think, I don't know, what I don't want to, speak for him, and, but he's just one of those kids that, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to do what everyone else tells me I should do. I'm going to do what I think is best for me. And it turned out to be, really good for both parties, obviously.
Yeah.
And when it comes to Cale Makar, freshman Cale Makar, was it one of those, was there a key aspect that you saw develop out of Cale Makar, or was this a confidence on his intangibles that you were talking about being wired differently? Was there a key aspect that he developed at his time at UMass, or was it just more confidence in his play and relying on his intangibles?
I think it's just more like, you know, there's not a lot of, you know, he's a human being, and you don't, and he's not the type of person, if you've been able to talk to him or listen to some of his interviews, he's as humble as they come. And you know, he came in as a freshman, and he was obviously very good for us, but you know, I think he'd be the first to tell you, you know, there were things that he knew he could get better at. And you know, he went from, you know, obviously he played a lot as a freshman because our team was in a transition period. And so that was a great, so he realized that was a really good opportunity for him. You know, but at the end of the year, you know, he took a few days and, you know, obviously listened to, you know, talked with his family. He spoke with us, our coaching staff, and, you know, in Colorado, and just said, hey, I think I can go back and be way better. And then he went from, you know, I don't have stats in front of me, but went from you know, a 20-point guy, which as a freshman defenseman is really, really good in college hockey. But then he went to, you know, I don't know what he had the second year, but, you know, 50+ points. We went to the national championship game and he won the Hobie Baker. So, you know, like, it's kind of been the same evolution, you know, in the NHL level. You know, he went in and he was very good right from day one, but he just seems to get better and better, and, you know, has become one of the best, if not the best defenseman in the NHL, which is the same thing he did in junior, the same thing he did in the NCAA, and he's doing the same thing in the NHL, which is pretty incredible.
You've mentioned many times already just his makeup, like, you know, his loyalty, like he is a humble guy, and he had the opportunity to go play in the Olympics, right? And turn that down because he didn't want to miss the couple weeks that the Olympics go with UMass. Was that surprising to you, or is that like, no, that's just how he's built? Like, he's committed to us. And I mean, like, you know, were you guys kind of like saying like, it's okay if you want to go play the Olympics, like, but wink, wink, not really? Or like, how did that whole thing go down? And because I'm just amazed, like, someone said no to Team Canada.
Yeah, it's actually a really, I have a funny experience from that, and, you know, I've probably said this on other interviews or whatever, but so he was playing for the World Junior team, and they won gold that Christmas or whatever, and then the Olympics was starting right after that. So he missed I don't know, like maybe 2 or 3 games with us while he was playing with the World Junior team, and he was slated to come back and join us. So they won, and we were playing in Vermont like a day or 2 after they won. And so he flew into Montreal, and I was an assistant coach. And I'm like, I'm going to go pick up Cale and bring him because Montreal was the closest airport to Burlington, Vermont, that we could get him there in time. So anyway, I went and picked him up, and we had known that he was going to get asked while he was gone. We had heard that he was going to get asked to play in the Olympics, and that was going to be another 3 or 4 week commitment for him. And he was going to miss another. So he would have missed like a third of the season or something. And so he decided we have no say. Like, Cale is going to do what he believes he should do, and rightly so. You know, it's that, you know, he's earned the honor of playing in the World Juniors, and then if he wants to go to the Olympics, obviously we're gonna, hey, congrats, and go ahead and do it. You know, as much as it would have been tough for our team. So he decided not to do it, and we were like, man, that's wild. And he just feels like, he's like, I don't want to let my team down. I feel like being away from my team is that long is really tough. And, you know, you almost kind of feel guilty as a coach when a kid says that and comes back to your team. But anyway, I picked him up in Montreal, and I think we had a couple-hour drive to get to Vermont. And I was listening to the NHL Network while we were driving, and the majority of that trip, they were talking about the fact that Cale was not turned down the Olympics in Team Canada, and
in like a negative way.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And wow. because you know, it was the pride of the country. I get it. You know, that's people's job to talk about those things. And, you know, I was going to turn it off, and he's like, no, it's all right. You know, like, and he just takes it all in. And, you know, I think he's able to, like, I don't know if he finds a way to kind of use those things as motivation or strength or whatever. But I mean, it was really, really, it was a really interesting experience.
You're sitting there driving and they're bad mouthing your player right next to you. And he's like, no, leave it on. And I think that's that quiet confidence he's got. He's taking, they call it receipts now, right? I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think he just, I mean, he was never, you know, as a young kid, he was never the guy that everyone was, hey, you're going to be the next, you know, the next great NHL defenseman. And, you know, so I think he uses it, and now he's become that. And so I don't want to speak for him, but he, you know, just, you know, having the experience around him there for a couple of years is like, it's pretty incredible to not allow those things. And I'm sure that there were times where things did bother him, and, you know, because he is such a high profile player, but he never let it show. And, you know, it was really just kind of incredible to be there, you know, watching, you know, a kid, you know, go about his business like that. Yeah. And he's 19 years old or whatever. And, so, you know, and he's not a, you know, I'm going to show, you know, he would never say those things, you know, you know, I'm taking receipts, or he's not, that's not how he's wired.
No,
but it was just interesting to, you know, to have that experience and hear that. And
that's wild.
And watch him, you know, continue to grow and not let any of those things bother him.
Yeah, to go from all that to be one of the first players announced for the Four Nations game coming up in the NHL, and a marquee player with all that hardware, and going into the Olympics, he's going to be one of those that are highly touted. So it's interesting to see all that come full circle.
Yeah. And good for him, you know, like he's the classiest, you know, one of the classiest kids I've ever been around, and he deserves everything, all the accolades, all the, you know, all the attention he gets, and he does it the right way. And he's a consummate teammate and a consummate pro.
All right, let's get our first break in here, and then we come back. We'll finish up with Cale and then turn our attention to Taylor. More immediacy with the Maine Black Bears and what he can bring to the team for this year. All right, we'll get to that coming up next. All right, let's hear from FanDuel. And we love sports. We love them so much that we never want them to stop. But as the playoffs are now over in the NHL, we'll get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like we want them to. So FanDuel lets us keep sports going whenever we want. And all we have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime that we're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all day, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. That's FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right. So a few more things with Cale. Like we were talking about his time at UMass. It must have been chaotic for him. You know, that national championship game that they lose, and then he finds himself thrown into the playoffs with the Avalanche. Do you remember that time? Like, do you remember? I'm sure you guys were watching his first game, and then that first shift, first goal, first shot, parents in the arena against Calgary, his hometown. Do you remember watching that and any of the emotion that was being felt? Was a big watch party going on for that, or no?
I remember almost like just that time, because it was, you know, obviously our team lost the national championship game. You know, I think there's for Cale probably even more. So, you know, some of the things that people don't know. So we played, the way the Frozen Four works is you play, I think it's Thursday are the semifinals, and we played in the second semifinal, and we went to, I think it was double overtime. We were playing Denver, and so we didn't, so we won that game in double overtime, and we didn't get out of it. I don't think the game started until after 8 o'clock. It might have been, you know, it might have been 9. So, and then after that, you have the way it works at the Frozen Four is I think it's like a 45-minute cooling off period, and then the team has to stay and do press conferences, interviews. The coaches do. Then the whole team stays though. So anyway, it must have been 1 o'clock in the morning when you know, when we got out of that ring. It might have been 1:30. And then you have a day off between that and the national championship. So you think you'd be okay. But the day off is the Hobie Baker ceremony. So that started the next morning for Cale at like 8 or 9 in the morning. I don't remember, but that's like a whole day thing. So the ceremony itself is like, you know, at 3 or 4 or something in the afternoon, and, you know, it's like an hour long, but he has appearances and all. I mean, it was, so he must have slept a couple hours that night. And then he won the Hobie Baker and had to go through that whole thing. We played the next day. Obviously we lost. It was a disappointing game. Obviously it's an emotional letdown to lose a national championship game. And then I remember this so clearly, obviously because we were, you know, in the Frozen Four, but my wife was there in a hotel, and we had our 1-year-old, we had a 1-year-old son. So we were like, it was the first time I think we'd ever had him out of the house and, you know, in a different place. So we were up at like 5 in the morning the Sunday after we lost. And I remember we were in the lobby just letting him walk around. We had to get out of the room, and he was leaving to get on a plane and go play. I think that night. I don't remember. It could have been the next.
I think it was. I think
it was that night. And I remember seeing him and his family leave. And, you know, obviously it was, you know, it was knowing that, you know, he was done and going. We were all happy for him, but it was also kind of a sad time for us. And I just remember thinking to myself, I don't think if I was him, I would want to play that first game, because you're going into, I think in the playoffs. I think it was, was it the playoff, or maybe
it was, yeah.
I think it was the first round of the playoffs. He's going in and playing his first game in the playoffs on like 3 days of no sleep. And then he goes and scored, you know. So I just remember, I was just like, if I was him, and I remember saying this to his dad. It's like, is he really going to play? He's like, oh yeah, he's been waiting his whole life for this. He'll be fine. And
he's prepared, yeah.
Yeah. And I just was, you know, because like, you know, it was all the things you wouldn't want to do preparing for that first NHL game, having played 2 games in 3 days, you know, at the national championship, and not slept at all, and waking up early after that, and leaving first thing in the morning to get on a plane. And so, yeah, I remember everything about that, just because of, you know, the circumstances, and, you know, the circumstances of our team, of my life personally. And it was just incredible to watch.
I think it takes a different, the father's reaction when he scored that goal. What you just described kind of like makes me think of it in a different way. Like his reaction was just like, it's so genuine, but it's like all the stuff that the not sleeping for 3 days. I think the dad's reaction was like, I can't believe he's doing this on no sleep. Just everything he's been through the past week. I think it was just this emotion of like, I don't like relief and I can't believe he's doing this on his dad's face. It's because the goal was great, but the reaction of the family members is just as good.
Yeah, I mean, and it's 100% genuine with them. I mean, you know, Laura and Gary, his parents, are just most down to earth people, which is why I think their kids are like that, obviously, and that hasn't changed at all. You know, it's, you know, you fast forward, you know, 4 years, and, you know, Taylor goes into the transfer portal, and, you know, we're the first call, and it's just like, hey, would you? Yeah, I would. You know, like anyone would take Taylor as a senior, as a one. You know, he's an impactful player at our, and it's just, that's just the way they are. They're just, you know, they make their mind up, and they stick to what they're going to do, and they work hard, and they're honest, and they're clear eyed, and yeah. So like that, I think what you just said is 100% accurate, and. But it's almost like never been a doubt with him, because he's just been so committed to what he's going to do. And that starts with the family. It's not just Cale, it's everyone around him. And it's really cool to see.
Oh, I can't hear you, Kyle. Fix your mic. I want to get to Taylor in a second, but I just got to add, like, did you ever think you'd see him on the front of a video game? Are things like that like surreal? Like, I mean, because you coach guys that make their way to the NHL, and you've seen guys come and go, and but getting on the front of a video game is just, it just brings like the childhood nature back to it, and it's like, yeah, he's that good where, you know, EA is putting him on the cover of a freaking video game.
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yeah. Being there with him the second year, I probably it doesn't really surprise me seeing what he did and his growth. But it's in our world, like as coaches, and sometimes it's the same as parents. It's like or players. I'm sorry, like you get you have those special scenarios where things come together, and like for me, like I might not be having this conversation with you today if we don't get a chance to coach a player like that. And that's and I think every coach probably would tell you similar things, so it's you feel fortunate to be in the right place at the right time around a certain group of people, and someone like that and a family like that is it just makes you appreciate being in their presence. And then obviously you get other opportunities present themselves because of it. And so sometimes you kind of like, we had a chance to coach, one of the best players in the world, and, one of the best that, at his age has probably ever played, if things continue to go this way. And, and because of that, I benefit from it personally, and, as have other people and other players and coaches that have been around him. So it's pretty cool and pretty humbling.
Yeah.
And you got me now, right?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah,
awesome. I want to kind of hit on Taylor a little bit, because I mean, we've talked about Cale, and when Taylor was drafted, everybody's like, "Oh, he's related to Cale." Well, I want to give Taylor some shine. Like, talk to me about what Taylor Makar could bring, because you've talked about the family and how they're constructed and how they kind of set their mind to things. Talk about Taylor a little bit. Give me some of what he's going to be bringing to Maine and some of his intangibles, and how is he made up in comparison to Cale, and what is he going to bring to this development camp for the Colorado Avalanche?
Yeah, I mean, I know him as as the kid that was finding his way in the Alberta Junior League, and then I left before he got to UMass. I was involved in recruiting him, but he's a totally different player than Cale. Obviously, as a big power forward. So he's a totally different player. He's a different person. Very high character, just like Cale. So I think he brings a lot of those intangibles. He was a pain to play against for 3 years. Every time we played them here, every time we played UMass at Maine, and so I think he fills a need for us that I think we didn't necessarily have enough of last year. And we came up short in the NCAA tournament, obviously. So I think he's a guy that can play anywhere. He can play up and down your lineup. I think he's potentially a player, and obviously, a lot of it's going to depend on, what kind of year he has this year for us. But I see him as one of those players that, and I've coached quite a few guys that their game translate. You wouldn't necessarily peg him as, that guy's going to go and have a long NHL career. But his game is going to translate at that level. I mean, I was at Providence, and we had guys like Brandon Tanev and Noel Achari, and I see him as a player similar to that. Those guys were not necessarily super highly touted guys that play, but they were so effective at what they do. Big bodies that can skate and play hard, can make plays, but do a lot of the little things that the coaches look for. So that's hopefully that's he has a great year with us, and then he turns himself into an NHL player. I think he has the tools and the body to do it, and I think he has the makeup to do it. So we're looking forward to seeing what we can get out of him.
Yeah, I think when he was drafted, I think it was 7th round. And I think a lot of people just saw the name and they were like, oh, there's maybe some nepotism going on here. But as the years have gone on, I feel like he's risen up the Avs prospect ranking. And like what you're saying, like he's put in the time, he's put in the effort. Like, sure, I think now he has an opportunity to crack this team at some point. That remains to be seen, obviously, but I 3 years ago, it would have been like, I don't know. I don't know that much about him, but 7th round picks usually don't pan out. They do, but it seems like he's making the case for himself to make it difficult for the Avs front office to at least not give him an opportunity. So
yeah,
I think it's going to happen sooner or later.
I agree. And, I remember when he got drafted too, and there was a lot of, that, like what you just said, it was, oh, well, it's his name. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I think that is a fantastic, like the amount of 6th or 7th round picks that probably make it at the end of the day to have long NHL careers are probably, so you're betting on a kid that is of super high character, has the body and the tools to do things, might be a different development path than Cale, obviously, which, would be the case for, 99.9% of everyone that plays hockey.
Right.
But I think it was, I think they have a really good prospect there and a guy that, eventually can find his way there. And it's not going to be the same path as his brother, obviously, but, he's an extremely effective player, at our level. He might not be the guy that, is putting up huge numbers every year, though I think he will put up, I think this will be a really good year for him. But, I don't think there's any team in the NCAA that wouldn't like to have him on their team. And that says a lot about him.
Absolutely. Real quick, and then I want to get to Maine for this next season. And we all know about the transfer protocol and stuff like that, but I just want to know like how it actually works, because I know guys say they're entering it, and then what happens? Do they reach out to you? Do you have to say like, okay, here's the list of guys, and you're pretty much like going recruiting again? Is it a combination of those two? Like, how does it work?
I think we're all trying to figure out how it works.
Really? Okay.
Like,
so you're just as confused as we are. Okay.
I mean, no, like we know how it works, but how it plays out is ever changing, and like, I don't know how many, it's been like 3 or 4 years now where it's been a thing.
Like
yeah. In the first year there was a handful of guys, and then every year it's been more and more. I think it's like a lot of things in not just hockey, but just in general in the world these days. Like, I think it was put in for the right reasons. And the reasons it was put in was, if we recruit a player and bring them to Maine or UMass or Boston College or whatever team, you might be coaching, a lot of times, like, it's not a good fit for whatever reason. Everyone makes mistakes. Kids go to the wrong school. We recruit the wrong players, or we don't jive, as people, whatever the case may be. And it's not fair to hold that, if that kid wanted to go somewhere else, it's not fair to say you have to sit out a year to do that. So you almost had him hostage. So now it's gone so far the other way, where every year is now like free agency. So you have free agency with no contracts, and then with NIL type stuff, like with name, image, likeness, you can, you really don't have salary cap. So it's like, it's really, it's like a perfect storm. And I think if you asked even the teams that, are, the highly resourced teams that have the ability to go and get anybody they want, whenever they want, I don't know if it's a good thing it hasn't helped our sport. I started at Union College back in 2008, and that team won the national championship in 2014, I think. It's going to be hard for something like that to happen again. And I don't think that's a good thing. And, but I don't know where it goes from here. As far as how it works, like, I think the one thing that's really, that has been good is it's forced programs and coaching staffs. It forces us to be, to keep growing and being good at what we do. So it really holds a mirror to us, where, when I started coaching, you had all the leverage on the student athletes, and now you have zero, so they have to believe that they're in a program where they're going to keep getting better. They have a chance to win. And, you have to be able to push them out of their comfort zone and make them better without being that guy that's just going to, the old school guy that's just going to try to break everyone down all the time. So, I mean, there's good things that come out of it. I think it's making, the programs that are going to have success, it's going to make them better. And it's making us better as coaches and administrators. the other side of it is like, it's also, it's easy to push players into the transfer. So it was set up for a player to find a better situation. Now it's, it's taken the onus away from developing a guy necessarily that maybe had a rough start or a rough year. So it's a double-edged sword, like I don't know where it's going to, like, I think everyone knows that that's a little bit out of control right now, and it's not, and the players get blamed for it. And a lot of times it's not the players, hypothetically you could play for 4 different teams now. It started off with you could transfer one time. Now it's unlimited. So they just keep taking off the regulations of it. And, ultimately it's because of, things that are happening in the courts. And,
how do you pull it back? I mean, you're
I don't think you do. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. That's above my pay grade to try to figure that out. And but I don't think you can. And that's, so it's, how do you navigate it? Like, you have to find a niche, and you have to be really, really good at bringing in people into your program that are the right people, not just the right players. Sure. Because if you don't, it's like a house of cards every year, and you could lose your whole team. And you've seen that happen a couple of teams that, in the NCAA, where, like, if we were playing today, there might not be enough players to play. And so it's really interesting times for not just in hockey and all, in the NCAA in general. And, we'll see where it goes.
Right. Yeah. That transfer portal, it's right for the right reasons, right for the wrong reasons. And it creates that separation that's hard to get back together. And I'd like to see that get regulated. I completely agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hockey is such a small, there's only 64 teams. And, it's really created a divide from the teams that have all the resources. And, obviously if you're, like in the league is a big part of it. So it's not in the big picture of things. It's tough to it's not, the rules of the NCAA are not necessarily set up for one individual sport. It's set up for, probably the sports that are driving the revenue. And, a lot of that's, football and basketball. And,
Sure.
So that's the tough job the NCAA has to try to find a set of rules that works for everybody. And, it hasn't, I don't think it's been a good thing for, for college hockey, with just because we're such a small community, and it's a small, so you're really putting some smaller schools that have been traditional powerhouses or have been, really good teams in the past in really tough spots. And that's probably not good in the big picture, but we'll see where it goes.
All right. And as far as you guys for this year, you got there and you kind of really turned things around. Things are looking pretty good for you. Like what's the expectation for this season? Had a really good year last year. Lost to, was it Cornell, I think, in the first round. So I'm guessing the expectation is push beyond that, right?
Yeah, I think, this will be the first time where our team really believes that we can go the distance, and, we, in 3 years, we went from one of the worst teams in the nation to we were a top 10 team the whole year for the most part last year. And, we have a really good core returning, and we were able to, add some really good pieces like Taylor and some of, and some of these, we have 3 or 4 other transfers that, that we were able to really, really, we think, improve our team. So, I think we have last year was definitely a year of growth. We went from really bad 3 years ago to average to pretty good last year. Now, how can we become great? And I think our team believes we can do that this year. And now we have to go and put the work in and get over, more of mental hurdles that, when you're trying to change a culture a little bit in a program. So, our guys come back next week, and I know they're all super excited to continue this, this thing that we have going here. And, we're not a young team anymore. We've been pretty young, over the last 3 years growing this thing. And now we have some guys that have been through it now. And that's, you can't teach experience. You can't create experience. And now we have it, and we have to find a way to take it to the next level, which, that's our job.
And I believe you guys just dropped the schedules for next year. So I believe you guys are October 5th, AIC, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, first game's October 5th. And
playing Union?
We're not. We played Union last year. We don't play Union.
Yeah.
We play at RPI this year. So Chris,
at
maybe
RPI. Okay.
if you're around, let me know, and
All right.
we'll get you over there. And
all right. Well,
yeah,
and then,
we have
the next year, Union's got their new arena that should probably be built by then. So
yeah. So hopefully
right,
we get
right next to a casino, which
we play there. Yeah, I know we can get you at those games. Then,
yes, yes, I hope so. Yeah,
yeah. No, we have. Hopefully we get. I would love to. My wife is. Tara's obviously from Waterville Eats, so
yeah.
And I spend a lot of time in the Capital Region, so we're always trying to play those teams if we can, and yeah, next year's schedule should be pretty challenging. We have Denver coming for 2 at home, and Quinnipiac coming for 2 at home outside of the hockey schedule. So really challenging, and hopefully we're up to taking it to that next level.
Now I gotta mention this because this stuff like this just fascinates me. So last year, the Nadeau brothers, you probably know where I'm going with this. So Bradley, who is not there anymore, right? He went to Carolina. He's on the Hurricanes, right? So him and his brother, are they twins?
They're not twins. No, Josh is 2 years older than Brad.
Okay. So you guys were playing in early December. I don't know who did it first. Did Bradley get the hat trick in the first game? Or was it Josh that got the hat trick in the first game?
I think it was Josh.
Okay.
And then
so Josh gets a hat trick.
Yeah.
The 3 primary assists come from Bradley. The very next game, which was that the next day too?
There's a day in between. We played Friday, Sunday. Yeah.
The very next day, Bradley gets a hat trick. The 3 primary assists are from Josh. Never happened before. Probably will never happen again. Like, did you know that? I mean, I know you probably knew that they were, had hat tricks back to back, but did the assist part, did you know that right away too? Or was that like someone tell you that?
Well,
after the game,
if you watch them play, and they were committed to us for a couple years before they came last year, and they were playing out in Penticton in the BCHL, and if you watch them play out there, they led the league in scoring by a wide margin there last year, and like everything they did was together, and it was, you would think they were twins. I likened it to the Sedins with and someone asked me like halfway through the year, it was, they do things that you don't, they're just because they just spend so much time on the ice together, like outside of practice, and they've been doing it together for, they played 2 years of junior. They're not the same age, so they didn't always play together growing up, but it feels like they did, because like they always knew who each other were. And that weekend that you mentioned was really cool, but they did that all the time. They didn't always have hat tricks, but like, we had a playoff game at home against UNH, and we scored 5 goals, and I think they were in on all five of the goals. It was just like, the bond that they have, and was really incredible. Obviously, it'd have been great to have Bradley back another year, but we were super excited for him, and he played his first game after the season in Carolina, and he's going to be, I can never predict that, like how long, how guys are going to do at the next level, because it's all about opportunity, but I'd be shocked if he doesn't become a star there. And I think Josh will do the same thing eventually. Josh is smaller, so he's not always going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's a couple inches shorter, but he is, every bit the player that Bradley is. And
is he signed with anybody or no?
No, he's coming back. Okay. So, as a smaller guy, it's you just, it's going to be, to getting his chance will be harder than it is for Brad, and Brad was a first-round pick. So, but I have no doubt he'll get his chance someday, whether it's after this year or after next year, whenever that is. And he's a special player in his own right. And but it'd be good for him actually to probably for both of them to. It was almost like having another player on the ice when they were playing together. So maybe this year apart will help them grow in other ways too.
Sounds like some Nordiques era Stasny brothers,
right?
So it felt like. It was pretty cool watching them last year as freshmen. I think they both had close to 50 points, and that doesn't happen unfortunately we had so many of those guys, freshmen in Hockey East last year, that did that. So, sometimes they got overshadowed, those guys on BC and, obviously Celebrini on BU, but, what they did in their own right was really special.
Well, I know like the way the Avs have been operating for the past couple of years, Kyle knows, is like they're looking for those guys that are graduating that went undrafted and then going to sign them. And they pretty much have their pick. Well, not their pick, but you know what I mean? Like they can go shop themselves around. The Avs are heavily invested in guys like that. So
yeah, there's a lot of value there. And
yeah.
You know, those college guys that are, you know, 3 or 4 years in and that have been huge producers and they're free agents. So, you know, it's hard to predict that stuff because, you know, to get that opportunity at that level is everything. And there's so many good players in so few spots, but it's hard for me to, you know, to not see Josh eventually getting to that, even though he's not your prototypical size of a NHLer. It's hard for me to see him not get that opportunity someday.
Right. All right. Well, really appreciate you doing this. I have not been to a game up in Maine, and I've heard it's a time to see some.
It is the coolest place to play in college hockey. I really believe that. I've been everywhere, and
yeah,
if you guys ever want to come up, let me know, and you'll have a great time.
I think I might take you up on that sooner or later. So, all right, really appreciate you coming on and doing this, Ben. So, yeah, follow the Maine Black Bears for this season because it could be a special one for them. So, thank you again, Ben. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. He's Ben Barr from the Maine Black Bears. We got Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and I am Chris Maselli. It's the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys later.